Assalamu alaikum and peace be to you. Welcome to the Women Mosque of America's fourth discussion circle for the Quran Literacy Program 2025. It is such an honor to be able to carry on this work and the sisters that have really dug deep and did what needed to happen to make sure that this program continue. It is such an honor to work with them, and we want to thank you for being here and really sticking in there with us. And know that we are doing all that we can to make sure that this Sadaqah Jariyah carries on. And today, your facilitator would be Nadia Shaiq, and she will be conducting our discussion today. Nadia?
Well, thank you so much. My name is Nadia Shaiq. I went through the Quran Literacy Program last year with many of you. Not definitely not going to be able to fill Hasna's shoes, but I will do my best. Her curriculum is there, so we can continue working on that all together. So Hasna always starts with a icebreaker for us to get to know each other. And this is a good one if you haven't yet participated, or even if you have, kind of a softball to come in. So it is May the 4th. So with the May the 4th be with you days and memes flowing around and in honor of Hasna's media influence. The question today is, what is a movie or TV show or piece of media that has made you feel seen? So you sat, you watched, and you somehow felt like you were seen there, or you were it was a reflection of some part about you. It might not be the whole movie, it might not be the whole show, it may have just been one character, it may have just been one scene. But representations for Muslim is so important, for Muslims is so important in the media, and Muslims are so diverse. And we all have a facet of many different subcultures of our identities. Um, so I'm curious if people can share what is one piece of media that has made you feel seen. Feel free to unmute and share. Oh, go ahead, Lynn.
Hi. One piece of media that made me feel seen was the Canadian TV series Little Mosque on the Prairie. And they have a revert sister there who's married, who in one episode she confuses her prayers and she's got her prayer mat in her boss's office and she's like getting up and down and doing all kinds of strange things. And that reminded me of me when I first started praying and had a little book in my hands and was trying to do sujood when I should have been doing ruku and all kinds of stuff. So that was something that made me feel seen. So thank you.
Very cool. Thank you so much.
Well, I'll go.
Go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum.
Welcome.
So yeah, I'm still in LA, but kind of back and forth between Wisconsin and so. uh, when I was a kid, watching The Message really kind of made me feel very seen and like, wow, we can actually tell stories in a really great way, and so that would really resonated with me, especially the scenes with Anthony Quinn.
Yeah. You're growing out your Anthony Quinn beard.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Let's go to Roshni.
Assalamu alaikum.
Welcome.
So yeah, I think can you hear me well?
Yes.
Okay. So yeah, I think what immediately came to my mind as soon as you asked that question is like I'm from a state from the very southern part of India. The state is called Kerala. So the movies from that state has stood out, even though they have become more popular across India after the onset of like the OTT platforms. But I'll be sharing here would be like I think from probably the time I started to watch movies in my regional language or Bollywood movies, I've never seen a representation of someone who looks like me, like with more melanin in the skin tone, or like curly frizzy hair, and especially from Kerala, where majority of the women, look like me. But you don't see that in the movies. It until very, very recently, um, you know, like a heroine in a movie. Um, um, uh, she 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 was the main lead of the movie and looked like 90% of the women in my state. So that was so refreshing from, like the lean, fair, straight hair, something so refreshingly different. And I felt, I felt like I was seeing a part of myself on the screen. So yeah.
It's beautiful. Thank you so much, Vishnu, for sharing. Let's go to Kadira. Ali.
Hey, Assalamu alaikum, everyone. So this is a different kind of media, but a couple of months ago, I went to a comedy show. It was like my first one in a long, long time. And I saw Zainab Johnson, who is a Black American Muslim comedian, Black American Muslim woman comedian who is just incredible and so fun. And it was my first time going to a comedy show for sure that featured someone that hit literally all my like identity demographics, and getting the inside jokes about that very unique experience was just so special, and it really stood out to me, and I highly recommend. She's very funny.
Oh, that's amazing. And sometimes representation is so low, we feel grateful just to be represented in one part of us. So to be able to have multiple boxes checked.
Exactly. And like to have the whole room laughing at jokes. I'm like, do you guys really get that joke? Because it's very niche. So it was just, a really beautiful moment. And also just very entertaining.
Thank you all for sharing those. So because we are jumping back in, last month when we met, we were doing our tribute to Hasna. Now I wanted to take a little bit of time at the beginning and just let ourselves check back in where we are at with our Quran reading. So remember that no matter how much on track, not on track we are, one of the main goals here is just to keep going, just to keep trying. We know we're going to fall off sometimes, because that's part of being human. And so it's not a question of, is that going to happen? It's really a question of, when's it going to happen and how am I going to respond? So you might be in a place where you're keeping up. You may be in a place where you've fallen behind. You may be in a place where you haven't done anything for a long time. So wherever on that scale you are, thank you for showing up here. And we're going to now do two things. So I'm going to put in the chat. Okay, we have a Google's form, hopefully it works, for a check-in survey. And this is, again, there's absolutely no judgment at all, but just to do a quick check-in for yourself, as well as us to know how best to structure these courses and what other supports we can provide. A couple quick questions on where you're at in your reading right now. And the second part, once you finish that survey, you can go ahead and click and start it. Think back to at the beginning of this year when we were doing our intro activities. It was, we had to do a accountability survey. Do you all remember that? It was like a self-accountability survey. And they structured it really nicely. It was kind of, when are you going to do your reading? If that doesn't work, what's your next plan? If that doesn't work, what's your next plan? What are you going to do? So I want you to take a second and find that email. It should have been emailed to you if you click that button, and just reread it for yourself. Okay, so two things. Take this survey, find your self-accountability survey from January, and I'm going to give you about 5 minutes to look through and fill that out. Then we're going to go into breakout rooms just to share how it's going for you in small groups. So we'll give a couple minutes for people to fill out the survey and find their email. All right. Hopefully we didn't cut off any conversations. That was a piece. So I love doing breakout rooms because sometimes this big room you don't know all the people, but it feels a little more safe and comfortable in a smaller room. then hopefully when you come back to the big room, it is feeling safe and comfortable. Let me share with you, I'm not going to share details of anybody's responses, but I thought this was interesting to share. From the survey you all just took, it looks like when we asked what reading pace you're following, about 50% of the program right now is doing the 1 year program. 25% is doing the 2 year program, 15% is the 4 year program, and 10% is doing the 7 year program. So whichever program you're in, there are others who are in that with you. So thank you for taking that survey, for sharing that. I'm not going to share this part, but just wanted to, or I'm not going to share the screen, but I wanted to read some of the things people were proud of without putting names. And after that, I'm going to ask if anybody had any good conversations in their chat they want to share. So when the question was asked, what do you feel most proud of about yourself? Just for showing up today. Alhamdulillah, absolutely. Struggling through, even though I've been spending time in the emergency room in hospital. So subhanAllah, to whoever that was, our duas are with you. And I pray that the reading of the Quran is helping you through that time. That I tried. I love that. I'm proud that even if I don't always read the Quran every day, that its teachings and words still stay in my mind every day and affect the way I perceive things and pursue things, and have helped me become an overall better person. Alhamdulillah, that's it. That's living the Quran. The research associated with reading the Quran in English. Someone wrote, I'm proud of myself for trying to go closer to Allah in a time when life and faith feels hard for me, and for trying to learn about Islam straight from the source rather than through mediators. This will be my second time reading the Quran, inshallah, so I'm proud of myself for continuing my spiritual education and journey. That I keep coming back to the program even when life interrupts me. Inshallah, this year I will finish the program. Inshallah, I mean. Good, alhamdulillah. I am reading less than I should, but I'm more consistent than I have ever been before. And that I think is a wonderful celebration. A lot of times those shoulds are in our mind, and those shoulds are nowhere in the Quran. That consistency though is, so subhanAllah. I felt proud finishing up month 1 and being 2 readings away from month 2 for the 4 year track. I also feel proud of the growing relationship with the Quran and God. I'm proud for trying and for committing to the goal. I will complete this despite being far behind. I am on my way. I am about to finish reading Surah Al-Baqarah in a few days for the first time in my life. I have also learned a few handful of du'as and verses that I'm applying during my prayers. I'm trying to work hard to keep up, that I am here, that I have continued reading, and that I have been thinking about how to apply the things I'm learning from the Quran, even though I don't always use a curriculum guide for each day and space things out the way I should. There's that should again. We're going to work on eliminating that word from our vocabulary this year. Pursuing my interest in the Quran and Islam, despite my background, family, and upbringing. I feel proud that even though I'm behind, I'm still reading the Quran and not frustrated. SubhanAllah. I'm still learning the best times of the day to set aside to read the Quran, but I'm doing better than I was a year ago. That I made this commitment to truly read the entire Quran, starting and showing. So thank you all for that honesty, and that really uplifted me hearing. Does anyone want to share anything from their chat that stood out to them or that you enjoyed discussing? Go ahead, Sophia.
We talked a little bit about when we read, and it tends to be, for me, I thought I was the only one, but I tend to read in like blocks. Like I'll do like 3 parts of the curriculum, but then I won't get back to it, and then I'll read another. So it's not like I thought I had to do a little bit like every day or every other day, but that schedule wasn't working for me. So I felt better knowing somebody else, other people work like that too.
Awesome. I love it. That's why I really enjoy the flexibility of this year, that it doesn't have to be every day.
In the group that I was in, it was really nice to be with others who had already read the Quran and were doing the curriculum for the second time. So I liked hearing about how the second time around they were able to change some of their focus and incorporate more reflections or more applications, or instead the second time around actually just focusing more on the actual Quran itself and less of some of the interactive parts of the curriculum. So it's nice for someone reading it the first time. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Let's go to Fariha.
I didn't think anyone else would be behind, but um, everyone was not necessarily very behind, but just everyone like none of us were able to meet our targets, and although we were all in different programs, it still felt good actually. Like it made me feel better because I was really upset about having fallen behind.
It's so interesting when I hear you say having met my targets, it reminds me of me a lot because I feel like there's a lot of internal deadlines and targets and goals I put on myself. But if you kind of step back and think about it, anything you've read so far is more than you had read at this point last year. So that is one amazing thing. There was a period last year where I didn't read for 3 months straight. I thought I was done with the program. I was literally like, there's no way I'm catching up on 3 months. I'm falling out of the routine. I can't do it. And the moment I'm most proud of is just picking up the curriculum again. I didn't know where it would go. I didn't know if I'd finish. And alhamdulillah, I was able to, but it was just that literally just opening up that email one more time. So, and is it Lynn or is it Gwen? Because you have both the names on there.
Actually, Gwen.
Gwen. Okay, I'm not going to
What
call
I
you
go back.
Lynn. Gwen.
So in our group, what struck me the most was the ingenious ways that each woman had of connecting with the Quran. All of us had in some way or another fallen away from the curriculum. Every woman had a different way of connecting with the Quran, either through a group or imam or reading it with a partner. And it was just really exciting to see how everyone was keeping up the struggle, keeping up with the readings. Really touched my heart and made me feel less, because I was way behind and I sort of spent all of today reading. And it made me feel a lot better. So thank you.
So I'm going to transition now into the second part of our time together. The next 45 minutes is on discussing. We're all in different parts in the reading. So there's two ways I'm going to do this. I've chosen some verses from the curriculum from all of the different groups, the 1 year, 2 year, 4 year, 7 year. So I can share some of those and we can discuss. And also I wanted to ask the group, because we're each of our perspectives are so important. What verse that you've read in the last month it was meaningful to you and why? So I'm going to start to give people time to think about what verse might be meaningful and why for them. I'm going to start by sharing. This was back on day 79 for those who are there. And if you're not there, that's totally fine too. I'm going to look at this reflection section right over here in the middle. And the question that's asked in this curriculum is in chapter 5, verses 87 to 88. God commands us to enjoy the good things in life, not once, but twice. The quote from the Quran, do not deprive yourselves of the good things of life and partake of the lawful good things which God grants you. When you look at these verses, do you give equal weight and importance to God's commandments to have fun and enjoy life as you do to God's warnings to refrain from evil? And why do you think that is? Her follow-up question under the apply it is, what is something that brings you joy that you have been unnecessarily depriving yourself of? Do it today, this week, or schedule it in your calendar for this month. If you have a hard time sticking to it, remember chapter 5, verse 87 and 88 to help you view enjoying your life as an act of grateful worship to the Creator. Notice if your urge toward wrongdoing lessens as a result of you filling up your life with the good things God has provided you. If it does, then make it a point to balance out your life and have more fun for the sake of Allah. So let me show you those two verses. This is from Muhammad Assad's version. It's in the Quran, God says, "O you who have attained to faith, do not deprive yourselves of the good things of life which God has made lawful to you, but do not transgress the bounds of what is right. Verily God does not love those who transgress the bounds of what is right. Thus partake of the lawful good things which God grants you as sustenance, and be conscious of God in whom you believe." So the point that Hasna was making in the curriculum is in these two verses, there wasn't a need to repeat the commandment to engage in the good things of life. Why do you think it's there twice? And what is your reaction to this commandment from God? So that's in the chat is just the same questions from the curriculum that I shared.
Yeah, so it reminds me of what my Sunday school teacher said many years ago. I'm dating myself. So, you know, that Islam is not, it's not a set of don'ts, it's a set of do's, and meaning that it's an active religion. It's not don't do this, don't do that, don't do that. It's do this, do this, do this more. It's more of that than the don'ts. And because you know, we grow up, I think, thinking that, you know, it's just a set of rules we have to you know, abide by, that we have to, you know, stay away from all these things. But you know, and sometimes we ignore what it is that we are supposed to be doing, and enjoying what, you know, God's bounties is, you know, is a big part of it. But we, you know, tend to deprive ourselves of that. So yeah, just reminding me of that Sunday school lecture many years ago.
That's awesome that you got a Sunday school lecture that said that and not the opposite.
Yeah. It was
A lot of people are shaking their head at
rare growing up in that environment. Yeah. But that was the yeah, very, very happy that I grew up in that Islamic center.
There's a comment in the chat by Fatima. I think Islam discourages the concept of becoming a ascetic. Asceticism. Rabia.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. So I think what really kind of stands out to me about that particular verse is this, and I'm connecting it to something else I read earlier in the Quran about God wants us to be a people of like the middle way, so not too extreme. So I like that there's like the two opposites in the verse, not to deprive ourselves of the good and not to transgress too much onto the other side. I feel like the more I read the Quran, I see not just the gentleness and the mercy, but this idea of balance. Like that's the one thing that like keeps standing out to me.
Thank you so much. I'm going to go to Janae next. And after that, I'm curious if anybody has specific examples of things that either they or people in general may unnecessarily be depriving themselves of. So Janae, go ahead.
It makes me very grateful to have read it because I definitely grew up in the don't society. And even now, like as I try to like, I think that fear that comes about when you're just like, don't do this, or you're gonna go back. Like it's a lot of anxiety that kind of blocks me, I think, from doing things that aren't harming anyone and feel good for me. So like, I mean, I do it, but there's like a lot of guilt because people's like, oh, you shouldn't listen to music or dance and things like that. But I was like, but it's so joyful and I feel so connected. So why wouldn't I? But that it was like a constant battle when I was going just based off what like my family or community was telling me to do. So reading the Quran and seeing that is very peaceful for me and helpful and like reminder of that this is a middle way or moderation, and to remember like the balance of it, not so much of labeling things, but making sure to balance like what feels good and right.
Thank you so much. Kristen.
Assalamu alaikum, and thank you for sharing this beautiful verse. One thing that hopefully people aren't depriving themselves of is really enjoying being in their body. So like one thing I really enjoy is lifting heavy weights, and you get real like dopamine. I don't know if it's dopamine or serotonin. I don't know what it is, but it hurts while you're lifting the weights, but then after you feel so good, you almost feel like you've had like a huge cup of coffee or like a lot of soda or some kind of sugar rush or something, because you feel slightly high. But it's good for you though. It's not like a bad high. And then also smaller things. Like the other day I was with my students and they were playing on the play structure, and normally I just observe them and watch them, make sure they don't fall. Because you know what? This play structure looks pretty sturdy. So I decided to get on the play structure and play a little bit. And
I love that.
He had to see me do it. And I realized it was fun and I was getting a little enjoyment. thinking, why not just get a little bit of enjoyment every day rather than waiting to some, the weekend, or waiting until something happens. You can just have little bits of joy, or rolling down a grassy hill, or just small little physical things that you could enjoy. And I hope no one's depriving themselves of that. Just tie your hijab on tighter.
Although I will say, I gave that example at a PD I ran a while ago about rolling down a hill, and then I did it. And at age 40, it's harder. It hurts a little, but I'm so glad I did it. Let's go to Krishna.
Alaikum. I don't know why my little hand isn't working, but anyway, I was thinking, because I still kind of identify with new people, even though I'm not that new anymore. There's so much emphasis sometimes when you're a newer Muslim on what's haram, and there's so much more that's good, that's permissible, than there is that's haram. So, I think that people should just try to find the joy. There's a lot of joy in this path. And so, whatever brings you joy. I like that Hasna wrote in there mid-ground, that the intention was to stay in the middle and to be more moderate. So there's a lot of joy in that part.
I'm thinking back to the example Janae gave about dancing, and my daughter is in middle school. This is the first year in middle school, so of course school dances are coming up, and that conversation is starting. And my instinct was to go to the absolutely no school dances, but I'm now that I'm thinking about this, why not introduce it through the lens of I go back to the verse, but do not deprive yourselves of the good things, but do not transgress the bounds, and then putting it to her. What would it look like enjoying of the good things? What would it look like in dancing, transgressing the bounds, and having her have that critical conversation? So thanks for bringing up that idea, Janae, because you just helped me out with some real world issues I'm dealing with. Any other thoughts? I do have a question. Where does that come from, do you think? The feeling that we have to deprive ourselves from things that bring us joy. Go ahead, Sanya.
Yeah, this kind of half answering the last question, but also I think speaks to this too, of just it makes me really think of this past Ramadan when there was like that popular TikTok sound of like the boys and girls hanging out at Turkish or whatever coffee shops after prayer or whatever. I don't remember the exact thing right now, but I think that was one that had a lot of reactions along these lines of like, yes, like Ramadan is a time for spirituality and prayer, but also a time for community, and how do you balance those things? And I think like I think that like sort of community policing is like a lot of where some of the confusion and like the attitude comes from, because people don't trust, I guess, like that specific person didn't trust that these people were able to enjoy what is good without transgressing the bounds. And so I think that I don't know like exactly where that's coming from for them, but it seems to be like maybe some level of projection and some level of like infantilization of people, that they aren't able to take their faith into their own hands and make their own decisions, and that everybody has to make the same decisions for what's right for them.
I'm going to piggyback on that idea. So that idea of infantilization, of projection, who benefits from that? Because usually when something is applied to us and we're trying to kind of work our way out of it, and we start asking the question of where did this come from? The next question is, well, who benefits from it? Because that might have been working and creating this cultural norm. Any ideas, Nouri?
I think some religious leaders benefit from us not trusting ourselves and thinking that we can't think for ourselves, or thinking that things are more of a slippery slope than they really are, because then instead of like giving ourselves little judgment calls, we just defer to them, and that maintains that authority.
Riha.
I feel it's capitalism, basically. Like, I mean, colonizers changed the way Islam was practiced, and then instilled those ideas in our clergy, that this is the right way to observe a religion. This is how patriarchal a religion should be, and only then that would be considered a real religion, because Christianity was that way. And I feel that's just like, I mean, since capitalism is a byproduct of all that, or maybe that was a byproduct of capitalism, so capitalism thrives.
Wow, thank you.
I don't know if anybody else has their hand up, but kind of piggybacking off the capitalism comment, like taking it in a slightly different direction. I think capitalism is also implicated in just the like the slow sucking away of joy in adulthood. Like there's been a lot of research coming out in terms of the importance of play at every age and finding sources of creativity and fun and whimsy and awe, like at every developmental stage of life, including like where we are as adults, not just for kids. And so there are a lot of forces at play, even out like broader than within the Islamic community, of just like trying to stifle and stamp out that really essential part of being human. And giving that sense of balance. Like life is not just about work, it's not just about deprivation. There is a whole other side to existence that's like really important for our well-being, which is joy and happiness and creativity.
I want to hop in and make another comment. This is Krishna. This reminds me of a time when some sisters and I were trying to do a fundraiser for our masjid, and we were inviting native dean. We could only afford one dean, one native dean, but anyway, they're very popular when they were very popular. And different people would give khutbahs, and we would have our little literature, can you let them know about this event? And it wasn't just native dean, it was going to be other things, sort of like a little mini festival. And no one would ever really announce it. Sometimes they would, sometimes they wouldn't. So we were getting closer, and a brother gave a very moving khutbah, and it was all about being kind to animals and things like that. But he didn't read anything about our event. And so I'm like, I don't know if I should start being offended or what's going on here. So I asked the brother, I said, brother, that was a really wonderful khutbah. I said, but how come you didn't read our announcement? He said, oh, sister, so many people just don't agree with music or don't like music or something to that effect. And we just can't, say anything about music. I said, really? Because I have not always been Muslim. I've always known of Muslim musicians, particularly in jazz, well, all kinds of genres. So I studied, I went and I found the Quran, I talked to people, I started asking a lot of people, I was looking for references and whatnot. There was nothing in the Quran that says you can't enjoy music. There may be, I'm not a scholar, there may be something in there about, no, it couldn't even be anything about electrified music, because the Quran wasn't written at a time when there were electrical instruments. But sometimes people will say, oh, it's okay if it's acoustical, but it can't be amplified. Well, needless to say, we had a good program, and we had our native dean, and we had good representation. But for me, that would be another example. Music is very unifying, it's very joyful, it's very peaceful. There are expressions that would be considered musical in this path. Depending on who's doing the adhan, it can sound somewhat musical. When I made Hajj, I heard they would do this layered adhan where there's like one voice starts and another voice starts. And there was one where I was like, okay, this sounds like Eddie Kendricks from the Temptations, this voice. And so, I would say people need to, if somebody's telling you that something is not permitted or something you should be concerned about, then go study and make sure you agree with what they're telling you and ask them where's the reference for that. So that's why I appreciate this program, because it's causing us to study for yourself. Read this Quran, consider a moderate view, and know for yourself what the Quran says. Because the Quran to me is very freeing. It's people who are not very free.
You so much. And I love those examples. You know, building on what everyone is saying, if there's something that's keeping down joy, joy is what allows people to be creative, to be innovative, to think outside the box, to spread a message to the masses. And by stifling that, you're right. You really keep people in the hierarchy as it is. The people in power stay in power. Those who are not in power stay out of power. So it is, I agree with you all. It's freeing to read the Quran because the Quran throws that power dynamic out the window. It's people who have put that into place. I want to give some time also for anyone on this call to share what is a verse that you have read in the last month, or maybe before too, that has been meaningful to you, and why?
While people think, can I just make a comment on the previous conversation?
Sure.
That I think the stifling of joy in our community or communities often leads to secrecy. I think that's often what happens. I think the stifling of joy leads to overly being judgmental as a community. Because I cannot tell you how many times I see something on social media posted, often by women, which I think is very positive. For example, a group of women praying on the top of the mountain after they've had a long hike. But then the comments are all about how they were dressed, how the shirts were too short, how their pants were. But that's just one simple example. But I think the judgment is overwhelming, that it's as if we're supposed to fit a certain mold. And if you're not in that mold, depending on a particular culture, then you're not good enough. And it's just it's quite shocking to me. So I do think the stifling of joy, because we all are creatures of joy. We are created by Allah to be joyful. We have so much to be joyful about all day long. But I think it's not allowed so that we can be free. And the consequence of that for most people are secrecy. Even for the squashers of the joy, I think they're the ones indulging in the secrets, because they don't feel they can be joyous in a positive way in the open. So I think those are, and so this verse, then I'm not, I mean, just seeing it right now, it's very striking to me, and I wish more of us could be aware of it and try to be that.
Thank you so much. I mean, you I think identified some of the very scary consequences of restricting that joy and who it allows to do things in secret. Eden.
Hello. I wanted to talk about the opening verse of Surah An Am. The entirety of the surah was really important to me this month, but just the opening verse, which says, "All praise is due to God, who has created the heavens and the earth and brought into being deep darkness as well as light. And yet those who are bent on denying the truth regard other powers as their sustainers equals." And the presence throughout this entire surah of the balance between darkness and light as something to reflect on was really powerful to me when the Prophet Ibrahim is looking at the sun and the moon and the stars and using that as kind of a jumping off point for realizing the nature of God. It struck me that those alternations are alternations of darkness and light. And I feel like in reading other surahs as well, what kind of comes out to me in the Quran is this emphasis on, for humans at least, darkness as a place of rest and recuperation and rejuvenation, and light as a place of action. And I think so many times in spiritual groups or conversations, people kind of lift, and even just culturally at large, people think of lightness as good and darkness as bad. And I think that's totally wrong. That's the completely wrong way to be thinking about it. Because I think what's wrong is when you act when you should be resting, or when you rest when you should be acting. In the sense of, if you're taking action from a place of darkness, you can't see what's going on. You don't know what the impacts of your actions are. And if you can see what is right, but you're not doing anything, then that's also a problem. And there needs to be a balance between taking action and then also resting and reflecting and processing things. And if we get out of balance in that way, then that can lead to a lot of issues.
Thank you so much. I'm going to share on the screen the surah. What a beautiful reflection that you made on it. But let me share real quick. This is Surah 6. Surah An Am. All praise is due to God, who has created the heavens and the earth and brought into being deep darkness as well as light. And yet those who are bent on denying the truth regard other powers as their sustainers equal. He it is who has created you all out of clay and then decreed a time for you, a term known only to him, and yet you doubt. Although he is God in the heavens and on earth, knowing all that you keep secret as well as all that you do openly, knowing what you deserve. Yet, whenever any of their sustainers' messengers come to them, they who are bent on denying the truth turn their backs upon it, and so they give the lie to the truth, now that it has come onto them. In time, however, they will come to understand what it was they were wont to deride. From Hasna, from the curriculum, this is day 82 that Eden is referencing, introduction to chapter 6. So let's see, they talk about the authority of Rahma overall, examining your relationship to all the different human authority figures in your life, which is kind of what we talked about in the first question. They talk about, who do you attribute the misfortune to in your life, to others, to yourself, or to God? But what a beautiful talk about light and darkness, which again, question is, who benefits from us having that mindset on light and darkness? So let me open it up to the rest of the group on Eden's beautiful reflection.
Salam, something that strikes me as being a terrible relic of colonialism is what was brought up by the sister from our very first question of the icebreaker question of what moves us, and the whole I'm losing my words here. The whole idea of, like, from darkness being bad and lightness being good when applied to skin tones. And the sister from Kerala who was saying about how all the actresses who were fair and had straight hair were the ones given representation, and the ones who had more melanin and had curly hair were not given representation until this movie. And I think that's also a relic of colonialism, and implication that in today's modern world, that racism inherent in darkness and light, that we have to be cognizant of, and that the Quran frees us from, because we are all created from Adam, and
Dr. Nayalia.
Yeah, I that was a beautiful reflection, and I agree also with you, Gwen. These are the way that things have become racialized and used against and used to put us in division and disconnection from one another. And alhamdulillah, that when we read the Quran, we can see that all of these things are signs, but they were not meant to be signs to disconnect us or divide us. The God is trying to tell us something beautiful about what we really should be paying attention to, and that is that there are people who are going to take God's sign and make them something that's used against us and against each other. So I just wanted to say that I appreciated that reflection.
Thank you. Adnan.
I appreciate that note in the notes about the law of Rahma. And I'm very moved by those verses in Surah An Am in the 6th chapter. This aspect of God, kataba ala nafsihi rahma, that God prescribes upon God's own self, rahma. And I don't know of any other quality, any other attribute that is described throughout the Quran to be so integrally said to be integrally a part of God, that it's prescribed upon God's nafs in itself, other than Rahma. And so it's in line with why every chapter starts Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, in the name of God, all compassionate, that there's this emphasis through which we are to approach our relationship with God, approach our relationship with the Quran in the lens of that connection of God with compassion.
Thank you so much. You know, Eden, there's something that when you mentioned rest that triggered in my mind, and I found it in the curriculum. It's on day 101. It gets into chapter 7, but similar themes are in chapter 7 that are in chapter 6. And it asks, the curriculum asks, what is your personal relationship like with rest? Where do you think your attitudes towards rest came from? There's a link here that when you get to 101, you can day 101 you can click on. But the NAP ministry argues that workaholism, burnout, and hustle and grind culture holds its roots in American slavery because of the way the American economy set in motion a toxic, hyper pace of production inflated by free and enslaved labor. What lessons can you learn about the importance of rest from the community in verse 163? If you find yourself caught in this particular pattern with work, try something counterintuitive and take a day off to rest first before you plunge into more work. Learn from the community in today's verse and let go of the belief that it is you alone who provides your own provision. Try to relax into greater trust in God to bring your provision to you when you stop chasing it. Be sure to give thanks for any unexpected provision that comes your way while you are truly, deeply, physically, and mentally resting. And the community that she references, this is the verse 7:163, and asked them about that town which stood by the sea, how its people would profane the Sabbath. So this is when they're supposed to rest on the Sabbath, whenever their fish came to them, breaking the water's surface on a day on which they ought to have kept the Sabbath, because they would not come to them on days other than Sabbath days. Thus did we try them by means of their own iniquitous doings. So God is telling us the story of this. These people were supposed to rest on Sabbath, but it so happened that fish would only come to them on Sabbath. So God describes this as a test from God, saying, are you going to trust that God is the one who provides? And so if you follow God's commandment of rest, which is better for us, and then they who, what goodness might have come to them, or are they going to trust in themselves and say, I have to break this because of the fish coming? And I relate to that a lot because that workaholic culture is definitely something in the corporate world we have. Any other thoughts on that? And then even just comparing back to nighttime and darkness is when Allah has given us that gift of rest. So it definitely, as the sun sets today, is going to make me think differently about as I lay down and I rest and all that. Any other thoughts on that?
I would just expand it even beyond colonialism in America. probably a global issue. It's also a class issue. You imagine a caste system or things that where people are not given equal value in their time and their energy, and as a result, service other people who in turn don't respect what they're doing and what they're offering, and don't give them the grace of the humanity of everyone needing the same retreat and feeling.
Such an important point. Thank you, Safira. Not just how we give that grace of rest to ourselves, but then how to others. And what does that say about our belief in humanity? Another factor is generational trauma. That's my sister-in-law. Hey, Fatima.
Hey, sorry, folks. I'm really sick, so I'm trying to not talk too much. But yeah, if you want me to expand on that, I can. I mean,
Please, yeah.
I've had a really long journey with workaholism. I mean, I think, for me, a lot of it was also, exactly what, Nadia brought up. It's weird not calling you Baji, but what Nadia brought up was like, well, when we put Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala at the center, like we actually entrust our entire, faith, and we know that the risk is only provided through Allah. It's a very different way. We approach work very differently. And that's actually a very difficult thing to do. Oftentimes we think it's the simplest thing, we're always putting Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala at the center of our lives. We're planning our lives around Allah, but truly internalizing it, having a radical acceptance of this fact is actually very difficult to achieve, especially if you have like, generational trauma, if you're driven by anxiety, you're not really realizing that, you're giving a lot of power to folks that actually are not your kin or not going to remember you on your deathbed or are not actually part of your legacy. It's a very difficult thing to do, when you're accustomed to seeing, your parents or folks in your family just drive themselves to the ground because there's always this anxiety around financial security or, just trying to prove something or making it so central, such a central part of your identity that, it's very hard to let go and really put Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala at the center of these things. And for me, in this journey, it took me a long time. I went on Hajj like 2 years into my marriage. And I think that's the first time as I was doing tawaf that I really, it really hit home that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is like the center of our worlds. We get so wrapped up in the hustle and bustle, right? As we're doing tawaf, we're just more focused on people like hitting us or people around us. It's chaotic, there's so much commotion that we get so wrapped up in the little minutiae of life that we forget, hey, the Kaaba is always there. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is always there. And that's what we should be revolving around. Like that is, that's the true, beauty of life is completely surrendering to Allah. So my journey kind of started there, and then obviously the therapy and a lot of stuff helped as well. It's not like it was a small thing, but I think that first realization really, I think, what caused me to kind of take on more of a mindset shift and really start to reflect on what is it that, where does this, toxic attachment to work come from? Like, is this truly something that I really, really care about? Is it really part of my, value system? So, that's kind of how my journey started. But yeah, I'm not going to take up the whole time. I'll let other folks, chime in as well. But that's kind of, what hit home for me.
Thank you so much. I think you sparked something in Janae. Go ahead, Janae.
This is perfect because literally, like, my last few therapy sessions have literally been like, you need to rest, you need to sit still, like, there's nothing to do. But also, I have a job that depends on federal funding. And so when everything was happening, I was like in this panic, like, I still have a job, but when's it gonna go? Like, what? I was panicking. I was like, okay. And I was writing in my journal, I was like, and this is why I'm so grateful for this translation. I was like, what do I need to do to sustain myself? But I was like, wait, no, God is our sustainer. So I'm not sustaining myself. Okay, what do I need to do to make money? But just like that whole thought process, like this is how I thought, like I have to sustain myself, and I'm was really burning myself out and like unable to rest when I was in a good spot. Like everything in my body is like, you just have to sit still right now. There's no more to do. You just have to wait. And so just the fact that this translation is always like our sustainer, oh, our sustainer, oh, our sustainer, that's been such a helpful reminder to me. And I think too, just like the perfect, how this moment is so perfect is last year I read Rest is Resistance by, I think Teresa Percy is the Nat Ministry. And that was the moment I was like, I believe in all this. I need to reconnect to my faith. Like I know this, and now I'm here. So I'm just very grateful and just like the importance of remembering that Allah is our sustainer. So I can let go and let go and let God truly is what they always say, like learning to do that. But thank you.
Thank you for that insight into literally your thought process of what do I need to do to sustain myself? Oh, wait. Allah is a sustainer. So I echo Samia in the chat. What a beautiful conversation today. Thank you all. So there's really two big areas we talked about. We talked about joy and we talked about rest. So to close out today, I just want all of us to commit to something this week as part of our worship of Allah, where we pursue joy and or rest. And if you could put in the chat either what that is, or you could just put, I got it, if you want to keep it personal to you. But just something where we're committing to each other to engage in some kind of joy and or rest this week. So once you put that in your chat, you're free to leave. Our next session, Sunday, June 1st. Dr. Nayalia, I will turn it over to you for an ending close. But for everyone else, just make sure you drop in the chat either what you're doing for joy and rest or just, I got it.
Alhamdulillah, it was an amazing discussion today. Nadia, what a great job you've done. I enjoyed it so much. I'm sure everyone else did as well. As Nadia was saying, we will see you next month, inshallah, June 1st, 5 p.m. If there's any thing that comes up, we'll send you an email. And regarding emails that some of you might have sent, we'll be responding to those as soon as we can. Likely this week, I'll try to get to as many as I can. And also keep in mind that Hasna's family is having a Qur'an Khatam and dinner next Sunday. If you can make it, the information is posted on social media, so you can take a look at that. I think all the discussion questions for next month, they should be coming out soon. So everything's ready to go. So let's just continue to do what we're doing and hold everything together. You're doing an amazing job. And inshallah, we'll see you June 1st. Alaikum.
Assalamualaikum, everyone. Thank you.